So today we're going to talk about the project Catalog. And before we get started, I just want to, say to everybody that the tips and tricks that we discussed today are based on, insights from top-rated freelancers, are based on our own recommendations. But at the end of the day, you are in charge of your own careers, of your own businesses, and it's up to you to decide which of these tips you apply and to what extent, and so on. Right. So with that being said, just going to quickly introduce myself and Ross, who's also speaking today. My name's Kata. For those of you who are joining one of our webinars for the first time, I'm an Upwork Ambassador, and professionally, I'm also I've been working independently for about 8 years now, and currently I'm an enterprise project manager. And we have Ross with us as well today, who is a marketing expert, HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, and Memberium Certified. How do you pronounce it? Memberium?
It's Memberium, yeah.
Memberium. Okay. Yeah. He has his own agency. He's been on the marketplace for a while, I think about 3 years now, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And he's joined us today to also speak about his experience with the project catalog and how this is helping his standard way of operating on Upwork and the extras that it's adding to that. So our agenda for today will be broken down into the following. First, we're going to talk about what the project catalog is, just give you a quick intro and talk about best practices to apply when setting up your project catalog. And then we're going to do a project analysis. So we're actually going to look at 3 different case studies from 3 freelancers who were willing to share them with us. And one of them is for resume writing, one of them is for WordPress design, and one of them is for logo design. And I'm just going to talk briefly. We're going to see how those were set up. We've chosen some projects that are doing well, and that we felt have some good, interesting learnings to share with everybody else. And then Ross will talk a little bit about his own experience and learnings from the project catalog, speaking as a top-rated freelancer. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session, questions and answers. So feel free when you have questions to ask them. And we're going to start picking up questions at the end, and Ross and I will both answer them. All right. So what is the project catalog? Well, the project catalog is a new way to earn on Upwork, giving you the option to have clients come to you. It's a browse and buy shop where clients can buy your services the same way they buy products, by finding a project they like and instantly purchasing it. Your skills and expertise are unique, and regardless of whether you're a new member of our talent community or have been here a while in our talent marketplace, Project Catalog is a fantastic addition to your business. Go to the next slide. So it adds another way for our talent, for you, to build your business and create new client relationships on Upwork. The goal is to give you as much flexibility as possible, amplifying your business and creating another avenue for clients to find you, right? So in other words, it's another option for people to be able to search for you based on not just necessarily who you are, but based on the services that you provide, so that they can purchase those prepackaged services right away. All right, so what are some of the key advantages to using the project catalog? And here I also want to state that when we talk about advantages to using the project catalog, it's never a question of using the project catalog or bidding on projects and using the Upwork the standard way. They really work much better together. It's much better to think about the project catalog as an extension of what you do as a freelancer. This doesn't mean that you should choose either this way of working or working on fixed price or hourly. They both work together better. They just create more opportunities for you to highlight your skills to clients based on what they're looking for. All right, so some of the advantages are less back and forth with clients. The scope, cost, and price are all set from the beginning by you. It's more efficient for your workflow. You set the parameters and let clients come to you. You work on the projects you want and how you want because you built them. And most importantly, you do more of the work that you love to do. You can diversify your business and add more opportunities to gain more jobs. So for instance, before the project catalog, you would have your main profile, and then you also have your 2 specialized profiles. And this is another addition to that helps you highlight your skills and the services you offer in a new kind of way. You have full control over your projects. If you want to be active, you can have your projects turn on. If you're too busy, you can turn them off, and there are no penalties or anything like that if you turn them on and off from an algorithm perspective. Easier for clients to browse and select, and more contract for independent professionals. And while we're on this slide, I also want to ask Ross, because he started using the project catalog as well. So what are some of the advantages that you see in using it?
Sure. So the project catalog's free. So that's great already. You don't pay to add a project catalog or to edit or anything about it. So it gives you a sort of a bonus on top of applying for jobs. And you can have multiple project catalogs for each project. So it ultimately allows you to get more views, but without paying for money or without paying for customers, because the objective is to get as many people to view your project or your profile as possible. And this is a great way because you don't pay for it, and you can niche it down to make it as perfect as possible for clients.
Yeah, and you also, for me specifically, what I also like about it is that you only have to set it up once. Well, when you bid on a project that you like, you have to bid on each project. You have to bid on a lot of projects sometimes. But with this, you only set it up once, and then people just find it again and again. So it's a very different kind of setup. And again, both make sense. Both are good, but it's just about appealing to more types of clients. All right. So let's talk about how to set up your project catalog. And here, I don't want to go too much into detail, because I think you'll find when you get started to setting it up that it's quite intuitive. It's easy to just kind of figure it out as you go. But I just want to focus on some best practices to keep in mind during setup. So number one, you enter a precise, engaging title, and this is what all titles will look like. They all start with "you will get," and then you continue with, let's say, a fantastic deliverable that drives impact. Number two, select the category in which your project best fits. So you have those categories here. And a pro tip related to categories is that clients won't be able to find projects in categories where they don't belong. Also, it's a common reason for a project not getting approved. So you want to make sure that you select the most appropriate category to what it is you're doing. For example, if you are writing articles, lifestyle articles, the correct category would not be lifestyle, but writing and translation, probably, right? Because that's what this is a category of work that people will search for when they're looking for this kind of thing. So if you're not sure which category to select, the first step that I would recommend is search on the project catalog, look for people who are, look for projects that are similar to what you want to create, and see how they categorize them and the details, and kind of get inspired from there. Don't copy other people, but just get inspired and then apply them in a way that makes sense for you. All right. Next, you have the optional additions. They help you further categorize your project. Optional search tags will not be visible to the client. Tags will differ based on the category. So let's say in the example we see here on the left, it's related to logo design. And here in the search tags, you can add a few more optional tags, which are not going to be visible, but they're going to basically help Upwork match you with the correct searches. So for instance, if you're also doing 2D and 3D logo animation on top of logo design, this would be a good one to add. If you are also going to provide clients with the transparent version of your logo, which I think that in a lot of cases it's going to happen, then you can select this tag as well. And here, I also think that this can apply to people who, let's say the client has a logo and they don't have a transparent background. And that's kind of your service to clear the background and make it transparent. That might fit as well. All right. So here we have basically the next step is where you can select your tiers of service. And a pro tip here, it's to create different tiers for a single project to give clients options. You can choose to build tiers with different levels of service, revisions, pricing, and more. So what are tiers? It's this little switch here. And once you click it, you go from just having one set of options to having three. And here you can include basically more complex versions of the same project in order to, again, appeal to a wider diversity of clients. So let's say in the case of logo design that, you want to, on one hand, create something very basic and simple that is, it's not going to take you a long time for clients who don't have a big budget for a logo. But then you also want to provide people who have a bigger budget and want something a little bit more complex, an option to do that for a higher price. And so you can select your tiers from here and include things like number of revisions you're going to provide, number of concepts, days it's going to take you to deliver, and also the included services. And here with the days included to deliver, I can also, you'll see next in the optional add-ons, but you can also think about in the case of clients having something that needs to be done very urgently. In that case, they might be open to pay extra in order for you to complete the work that would generally take, let's say, 5 days in 2 days. And then, if it costs extra, then hopefully it'll make it worth your time as well. All right. Ross, do you have any specific tips for setting up your project tiers or your project catalog in general?
Sure. So just making sure that you've got everything included in your tiers, specific tiers. So it's really easy for someone to come onto the project and say, okay, this is specifically what I need. I know that, let's say the pro level includes source files, transparent logo, and high resolution, and they can deliver within 3 or 5 days. It makes it way more attractive than looking at an alternative freelancer.
Yeah. Yeah. And also because you're seeing those examples here. So one thing to keep in mind is that the included services will be based on the category of work you select. So those will be different from depending on what type of service you're selecting. The options you'll see there. All right. Price and scope add-ons. So this is where we talked about, if on top of the service you want to include anything else, you have the option to, and it's not mandatory, but you can select add-ons. And you can create your own custom add-on too. So for custom add-ons, you can decide your own title. So what the add-on is going to mean, your own description, the extra price, and how many additional days it will take you to complete the add-on. So to give you an example here of what this could be, it really depends on what you do. But let's take again, since we've been talking about logo design. In the example of logo design, an optional add-on could be potentially a brochure to go along with the design, or a social media graphic that includes the logo, or anything else, obviously, that you see fit for the type of work that you do. All right. I'm just waiting for the next slide to load. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Then you have the image gallery. So this is basically what people are going to see first, the thumbnail, and then also the other images. You can kind of think of this as your portfolio section on your profile. So you can select an image to act as a cover photo for your project. Clear cover images that reflect your service are the best way to go. You can provide portfolio examples here as well that related to the service you're selling. If it's a non-visual service, like let's say article writing, then you can also use stock images for your photo. You can see here stock images, and you can also, of course, pick your own photos or create something custom in a free tool called Canva or whatever else you think is relevant. All right. Preferred format for photos is JPEG or PNG. Has to be under 10 megabytes, and the aspect ratio should be 4:3. So make sure to keep that in mind. You want to make sure that it's going to fit very well into this format, so that it doesn't look like it's been cut, when people view it. And one thing to avoid Upwork logo, avoid images of software, text, contact information, or other private information. So what does this mean? For example, if you do WordPress design, in your image, you shouldn't put the WordPress logo, or the Upwork logo. Just put something that signifies what you do. And we'll see some examples of what you can use here in a moment. All right. Next, you have the project gallery. Here, you can also upload a video if relevant for your work. And a new addition, a new thing that was added to this, you can also upload a PDF file. So for instance, if what you're doing is, let's say, resume writing, then you could upload a PDF file in order to highlight, a template of a resume that you could write on, or give people an idea of what the design will look like, or things like that. The video format needs to be .mp4. The video length can be of maximum 90 seconds, but 60 seconds maximum is typically recommended. Video size should be less than 100 megabytes. And a pro tip here, if you make your video the cover image of your product, keep in mind that the first 5 to 10 seconds of the video will automatically play when clients hover over it. So make that first seconds really count. Once clients click on your project, they will be able to play the whole video. All right, project description. Here, it's pretty straightforward. You just want to include a project summary, tell clients how you can help them and what you can do for them. talk about the project steps, help your client understand exactly what will happen from the start, and frequently asked questions, and include frequently asked questions for clients. And here, a pro tip is to proofread. Always make sure that there aren't any spelling errors or anything like that in what you write. We recommend using Grammarly. Grammarly.com is a free Chrome extension, which automatically checks for spelling errors and context errors and things like that. And I use it all the time, and it's great for just making sure that your text is nice, clear, and makes sense. And here, in terms of project steps, Ross, how do you think about defining what the project steps for a client should be?
Sure. So remember, think about yourself in the client's shoes. For instance, if I wanted to get a logo created, what am I going to do? And using the project steps is kind of breaking it down into small nuggets of exactly what's going to happen at when and where. Just make it really simple for the client to be able to understand when they can get the product delivered and the steps that you need for the product to be delivered, i.e. you need information about their branding colors, or you need a website URL, anything that you need to make it easier, but also just make it step by step for the client to go forward, really.
Yeah, and here one thing I've heard specifically from somebody is their concern, about the project catalog would be around, well, okay, I have to put in how long it's going to take me to do something. So let's say that it takes me 5 days to write a resume, but I need information from the client first. So if the client takes 5 days to send me the information, I won't be able to complete my work on time. But that's kind of what the great benefit is of having those project steps, is that you can make them mandatory. So you can say, for instance, the client first needs to provide the information that you require before the project can get started and before the time starts ticking for you to have 5 days until delivery time. Right. So a few things to consider regarding project steps. You can factor in consultation time and planning. You can factor in things like check-ins, how many revisions you're going to have, how much it's going to take you to create the first draft. If there's going to be a step around project testing, like in the case of setting up a WordPress website, and finalizing the project. And here you can see on the right an example of project steps outlined: gathering information, then creating design concepts, editing and fine-tuning design, and handing over files. And we've talked a lot about design specifically in those examples, but project catalog can apply to a lot more, and we'll show you some examples of that as well in the next slides. All right, requirements from the client. Here you can describe what you need, from the client. Decide whether they should write or attach something to their request. For instance, if you need, depending on what type of thing you might be designing for them, maybe you'll need some resources or assets from them that they already have. Decide whether this is mandatory for the client to do prior to purchasing your project. And the tip here, be sure to think carefully about what you might need from the client prior to getting started on the project, but try not to ask for anything that is not really necessary. So you also don't want to overcomplicate the process of them working with you, because the more complicated it is for them, then the more, the higher the drop off you're going to have, basically. So you really want to keep it at what really matters. And then finalize the maximum number. How many of these projects do you want to do at once? So this is another thing. You might say, you might, for instance, already have a couple of clients or more that you're working with on Upwork, and maybe not have a lot of time for extra work that you would potentially get through the project catalog. But you can actually limit it here. You can say how many, what's the maximum number of simultaneous projects that you can work on. And then a couple more things: copyright notice. Make sure you read the copyright notice thoroughly. Read and agree to the privacy notice. Read and agree to the terms of service. And you can preview your project. You can click the preview link to see what your client sees before submitting for review. Once you've completed all of those steps, you can submit for review and wait until the project has been approved. All right, I'm just waiting for the next slide. There we go. Okay, now you might have questions around job success score and project catalog. If the client didn't provide what you need, or you don't want to work with them for any reason, you have 24 hours to cancel a contract before it affects your JSS. So let's say that you get a request from a client, and based on the details you got from them, for whatever reason, you decide you don't want to work with them. You don't want to work on that specific project. You can cancel it within 24 hours, and it will have no effect on your JSS. Also, if you don't hear back from a client within 48 hours of them buying your project, the money they placed in escrow will be returned to them and the contract will be canceled. Again, no effect. Case study. So now let's look at a few case studies like we talked about. The first one we're going to talk about is resume writing. And here I asked a top-rated freelancer named Faisal to let me use this little screenshot of his project, because he told me that he gets about 70 to 80%, I think, of his requests from the project catalog. So he actually does most of his freelancing work through the project catalog. So it's pretty well set up. And there are a few things that we can learn from here for people who might also want to set up a project like this, either related to resume writing or something similar like article writing or anything else. A pro tip here is to focus on the client. How will your service impact them? So for instance, you can see here that he starts with, hey, want my help in getting your dream job, want to have a perfectly written resume and cover letter. And then he goes on to talk about his experience. So it's always a good thing to focus on the client first, to really tackle the problem that you're solving for him and what effect that's going to have on them. And then, the next question in their minds will be, why are you the right person to help me with this? So once you've established that you want to help them with a thing that they're looking for, then you can back up that you're the right person for the job by talking about your experience and your successful work in the past, etc. Be clear about the different types of your resumes you can create. And it's the same with article writing, I would say. If you, like here we can see it with Faisal's example. He has in the industries, business, medical and nursing, technology and internet, travel, hospitality, general. So for him, it's quite a lot. But let's say that in your case, you are doing article writing and you only want to work in categories like lifestyle or fashion or something else. This is a great way to kind of help appeal to the people who are looking specifically for this type of work, rather than just saying that you do article writing and being very generic about it. If you narrow in on the types of articles you want to write, you'll more easily appeal to your preferred type of client. All right. Offer to show samples if possible. So if you have a template that you can share with people, or a mock-up resume that you can share to give them a sense of what they can look like, that's always useful. And you can, of course, again, use project tiers to appeal to more clients. So here you can see in Faisal's case, he has a startup plan, standard, and advanced, and it varies the kinds of deliverables that people get. So for the advanced one, they also get a custom design. For LinkedIn profile optimization and cover letter is included in the standard as well. And always remember to ask for feedback after completing work. Feedback is really valuable. It'll help you get the next projects more easily. And sometimes it really helps. You'll get a lot more feedback if you ask for it than if you don't, typically. All right, another case study. Let's talk about WordPress design. So here we have an example from a top-rated plus freelancer called Riti, who does WordPress website design. And pro tips, again, put your best foot forward. So what really stood out to me from her when I was searching for potential people to highlight in this part of the presentation was her cover image. It's very bright, it's very colorful, it's also very professional, and it looks very good, right? So highlight images in your project gallery that really stand out, especially if you're doing visual work. And here, what I like is that she didn't just take a screenshot of a landing page that she worked on, but she also kind of made this look very good. Like she put that nice colorful background behind it. And you don't need to be a professional designer to do this kind of thing. Again, if you use a tool like Canva, it's a free tool that helps you very easily make nice designs that you can use here. In short, I don't want to promote Canva too much, but it's an easy way. And what's great about it is that it's free, and you can use it to get those kinds of things done. All right, focus on the client. What is your project solving for them? So again, as we talked previously with Faisal, in her case, we can see that she starts by focusing on the problem that her project is solving. I'm here to deliver a professionally rich website. on a WordPress theme. I create websites that are suitable for viewing on all screen sizes, whether desktop, tablets, or smartphones. And here she also kind of presents what she does in layman's terms. Don't assume that, don't use technical jargon a lot. Don't assume that clients will know what you mean by, knowing, being in this field, I know that you could have just said responsive web design basically means that it's going to look good on desktop, tablets, and smartphones. But not all clients might know that, might be familiar with technical terms. So always try to explain things in ways that are easy for just anybody basically to understand. And at the end, think about what kinds of technical specifications clients may be interested in knowing about. For example, how many plugins will you set up? So in the case of Riti, she also sets up plugins for people. And see here, she includes the number of revisions, the number of pages, number of plugins, extensions installed. And here you can also factor this into your project tiers. So let's say that at a standard, you just want to set up a template for people on WordPress, but maybe in the more advanced version, you're willing to also include setting up a few plugins for them. So again, giving you, helping you appeal to more types of clients with different needs. All right, and a case study in logo design. Now here there are, if you search for logo design on the project catalog, you'll find a lot of entries. And I specifically chose Diana's, who is a top-rated plus freelancer, because what stood out to me is she charges a very high rate, compared to most logo projects that you see on the marketplace. And I wanted to highlight this because this is a good example of, hey, if you're not comfortable or if the type of work that you do is a little bit more advanced and you don't want to make it cheap just because everybody else is charging a really low rate, that shouldn't discourage you from setting up a project on the project catalog. Because sometimes, I get this from freelancers who let's say would normally charge $300 or $400 for a logo. And then they go on the project catalog and they search and they see that a lot of prices start at $50. And they think, well, there's no way anybody's going to buy my project because look, there's, 100 other people who are selling it for 50 and I'm selling it for 300 or 400. But that's not always the case. It's also appealing to the type of client that you want. And here, when I previously talked about this, I gave this example, but I personally would not purchase, if I'm setting up a new business, I would never purchase a $50 logo. Because if I'm setting up a business in, either the online space or the tech industry, I know that my logo needs to look really good. And I know that it needs to be unique and special and different. And you can't possibly do something really amazing if you're only going to work on it for 1 or 2 days, right? So I would look for something more advanced. I would look for something at a higher cost. So this just goes to show that it's not always the price that people care about. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Ultimately, what people really care about is getting work done that they that they came to do, and just making sure that it fits within their budget. So if you work with clients who have higher budgets, you can charge higher rates. For them, it's all about getting what they need and getting the best freelancer to do it. Right. So a few pro tips here. Remember to address frequently asked questions. Let clients know the file formats they will receive the logo in. So specifically with logo design, I think this is always important. In here we can see Diana includes the file formats AI, EPS, JPEG, PDF, PNG, etc. The logo style, it's always good to give people an idea of, is your logo design style in line with what they're looking for? In her case, it's minimalist, hand-drawn, and work marked. So I think that's interesting. The fact that it's hand drawn, it really means that it's going to be unique, and it's probably one of the reasons why she manages to charge higher rates. Set price tiers based on delivery time, number of revisions, file types, and other optional extras. So again, in her case, we can see the service tiers. We see that delivery time varies from 7 to 15 days. The number of revisions is another one that she charges extra for. The number of initial concepts and other things that we see here, source files and vector files. All right, and experiment with higher prices. If you think that your service is really worth a higher price than you're currently pricing it at, try to increase it and see if you still get clients from it. All right, and finally, this slide, and then we're gonna open it up for Ross as well to introduce himself and to start getting questions from the audience. A few additional tips for creating your projects. Is your project attractive to clients? Check out the following best practices to create a professional project. First of all, some ideas: benchmark and get inspired by other projects. So this is the easiest thing that anybody can do. Just go on the project catalog, look for services similar to what you're doing, and see what you can learn from people. But really look for freelancers who have a lot of ratings, who charge the kinds of rates that you want to charge, so that it's kind of the same, you're benchmarking what you want against people who are very similar to you, and see kind of what's working for them. And again, don't copy them, but just kind of, you can get inspired about your approach from what other people do. Think about fixed price projects you usually work on. So what does this mean? It means that if you get a lot of repetitive types of projects as fixed price, then maybe there's an opportunity there for you to standardize what you do in fixed price projects and create a project catalog from it to just more easily sell it. Think about what you're really passionate about and love doing. If you want to do more of that, it's pretty self-explanatory. And pro tips, which of course are optional: submit proposals and respond to invites by linking your project. So if you see projects posted on Upwork, which you think, well, they could just buy my project from the project catalog because it fits perfectly, then you can link to your project catalog, and they could also clients could also purchase it that way. Offer hourly or fixed price contracts to the client asking for more than the scope. And in here, I'm actually gonna ask Ross to pitch in, because I know that this is something that they do quite a bit. You use the project catalog for lead generation. So talk a little bit about how that works for you.
Sure. So a lot of the time, for the project catalog, because our business is pretty unique and custom, it doesn't really fit specifically in one niche, and the price can be very dynamic, right? It can go up quite high. So what we found is a lot of our projects can be put onto the project catalog, but a lot of the time people come and ask a question rather than purchasing straight through project catalog. But also along with that, you can put consultation time, and you can do that on a fixed price through project catalog, which works really well. So you might not always get the sales from project catalog, but instead you've made it a lead generation machine, which is obviously really beneficial to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's extra visibility and more opportunities for you to get your foot in the door, essentially. All right. So a few best practices and reminders: the more the merrier. Manage the number of projects you can work on. Don't forget that your profile availability doesn't impact projects. So that means that if you have your profile set to private because you don't want to get a lot of big ongoing work anymore, but you have your project catalog set to active, people will still see your project catalog even if your profile is set to active. And the other way around, if you have your profile turned on but your project catalog turned off, then people won't be able to find your project catalog, but they'll still be able to see your profile. Gain more visibility. Share on social media using direct links. So once you set up a project in your project catalog, this is a public link that anybody can view even without having an Upwork account. So you can feel free to share this on social media if you have potential clients in your followers maybe who might be interested in buying it. It's an easy way to just kind of share it and then make it easy for them to know it exists and how they can buy it. You can communicate with the client before they purchase the project. And regarding deadlines, after the client has purchased the project and completed the required steps that you define for them, the clock starts ticking based on when you said the delivery will happen. Regarding fees, projects work just like any fixed price project, but the upside is you don't have to spend connects. And finally, you want to make it cohesive with your profile. So snippets of your profile show up in projects as well and vice versa. So you just want to make sure that, if your profile is all about, let's say, WordPress design, that your projects aren't about something that is completely different, because that'll probably just look a little bit odd to people. All right. And next, I'm going to share and please ask some of you here to share your feedback about what you thought about this webinar. We're now going to take questions and we're still continuing, but I'm going to share this already just so you have it. And in the meantime, Ross, you've already talked a little bit about your experience with the project catalog, but to give people a little bit more context around what you do on the marketplace and what your experience has been with it, can you just talk a little bit about how it's basically progressed? Why you're on Upwork and how you went from starting and how you're now also using the catalog?
Sure. So about 3 years ago, I worked in a 9 to 5 job working for probably a big company a lot of you guys know, which is called Allison.com, which is an education site. And I realized that there's so much more potential with being a freelancer, not only for companies, but also for people, in terms of the flexibility, but also hiring talent that's actually specifically good at one region. For instance, some people are really good at making fashion branded logos, and some people they're very high end at specific things. And I knew that I had that kind of credibility. So I've been using Upwork for 3 years. I have an agency through Upwork as well. It's called Digital Me. So we have everything through Upwork in terms of that. We have a project catalog for myself. And then the agency right now can't have a project catalog just because of the complexity. But hopefully that comes in the future. So we use the project catalog as a lead generation tool. It's great because it allows us to get free leads without actually having to pay. And it's on a continued basis, really. We also apply for jobs as well. So we get leads from both avenues, really. The goal for Upwork is specifically get as many people to see your profile as possible, and then get as many people to purchase as possible, but also filtering out your clients. And that's where this really allows you to filter out clients by saying, this is our price, this is what it includes, and this is how we proceed. And that's kind of about Upwork, really, being transparent, but also understanding where you can cut clients off as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ross, for the intro. In the meantime, I've also shared the link to the survey. You'll see it in the answered sections. Hopefully that's working for everybody. All right. Now I'm just going to start taking some questions. And here, one that I think Ross can answer is, can an agency post multiple project catalogs?
Currently,
so I know that you use a kind of a way around that.
Yeah, currently an agency can't. So the best way that we find is the agency members have their own project catalog. And then when the leads come in, they go into the agency. That's the best way we found currently, but I suspect that Upwork's trying to bring something to light for the agencies too.
Yeah, and here another quick question is the visibility of project catalog dependent on JSS and reviews? No, you can switch it on and off as you please based on how much availability you have for new work, for this type of work. Okay, here's an interesting question. How do you know if a client is willing to pay more for a project?
Know your worth. Know what you can bring to a company. So for instance, if you're building a website, how would a company run without a website? And know how much you should be bringing to a company. So for instance, if I build a website for a company and they're online only, I know my worth because I know how much it means to them to have a better running website and one that can, let's say, sell products and stuff like that. It's all about, and also, if they don't want to pay the rate that you're offering, that's fine. Don't negotiate down, always keep your rates and just keep building up, because eventually, you'll find people who will pay those rates and will be really happy with the product.
Yeah, it's something to always keep in mind that, there are a lot of clients on the marketplace, just like there are a lot of professionals on the marketplace. So there are, tiers of clients who are very price sensitive and will look for that type of work. But there are still many, honestly, clients who are less price sensitive and are just looking for the best person for the job. So another thing that can be useful is you can look at a client's history and see if they've been paying really low rates or high rates in the past, what kinds of projects they've done, and also if they are an enterprise client or an Upwork Plus client. Those tags really highlight that this client is willing to pay more to get the best work, because they're already paying extra for extra services, right? Especially in the case of enterprise clients, those means that they're really big companies and they have much higher budgets. And also, I want to add here, in the case of enterprise clients, a profile is really, really important, because a lot of enterprise projects get posted privately and invite only. So in order for you to be invited by those really big clients, it means that you really need to have a profile that stands out. So really focus on perfecting it and making it as good as possible. And finally, some people will probably ask anyway, on that topic, You can find, if you go to upwork.com/community/events, you can find all our past events there. And you can see we've done events on specifically how to perfect your profile. And it's quite all, it's like 1.5 hours of just how to make your profile stand out. So if you're looking for more tips there, you can check that out. All right, let's take a few more questions. Somebody's asking, with fixed price, Upwork charges those fees for the first $500 and et cetera for the rest. Is it the same with the project catalog? Yes, it's the same.
A lot of people are asking about SEOing their profile. You know, if you put your project catalog or put your project up as, you know, logo design, there's probably 10,000 other logo design people. So you've got a high pool that you've got to compete in. But if you niche it down into specifically tech company logo design or various other niches that you could go into, you're in a lot smaller pool. So you have a lot higher chance of being selected. Trying to compete in a big pool isn't going to be fun. You know, there's 10 million plus freelancers on Upwork. Just not a good route to go, really.
Yeah, and I'm just typing here an answer for somebody. Somebody's asking, I wanted to improve my chances of winning projects. What would be the best advice? So again, for this, I'm just going to share the link, and everybody should be able to see it, to upwork.com/community/events. I've just put in the answered files. So there's an entire webinar called Winning Profiles that is completely dedicated to I typed that wrong. Winning proposals. And it's entirely dedicated to writing better proposals and just being more, you know, increasing your odds of getting those clients. Yeah, so somebody's asking, how can we make our projects easier for clients to find? I think, Ross, you already answered that regarding the SEO part, but how about, or actually, yeah, we kind of answered the other part as well. But I will restate, because I think it's really a great tip, that if you're having a hard time basically getting requests, then maybe you're like in this really, really broad target audience, and one of the ways you can think to increase your odds is to kind of specialize. So, you know, instead of doing WordPress design, maybe do WordPress design for agency websites, you know, or WordPress design for blogs, or something more specific.
A lot of people are asking if they can share their project catalog page. Yeah, so if you go onto the specific project, you can share it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and that's a good way as well, because if you're sending it to your Facebook group and stuff like that, you know, there's specific projects there that they can just pick up and buy without even having to go through anything. So it's just easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also for people, so once you've submitted a project for review, for anybody wondering, it can take, you know, Upwork tries to do this as quickly as possible. Sometimes it can take up to 5 days for something to be approved.
Man, being expert vetted doesn't affect the project catalog. Same as being top rated plus, it just doesn't really change the ranking system.
Yeah, it doesn't really change much, to be honest. I think that once you're top rated, you're in already, you know, on clients' minds in the top tier freelancers. So those other ones maybe in some, you know, cases they look a little bit better, but I really haven't seen any kind of difference. You know,
Yeah,
it really doesn't matter that much which of those you have. Okay, just trying to look for more questions. What to do to improve the visibility when your profile is public? So if your profile is public and you're not getting a lot of views, what I would recommend is just to bid more on projects. I found that helps. You know, be proactive, start bidding on projects, and then you'll see that helps as well. And also, if you only have a general profile, make sure to set up your specialized profiles too, because that gives you 2 extra opportunities to rank for different keywords. and to showcase a specific part of your expertise that clients may be interested in. Somebody's asking, can we get the video? Yeah, so it's the same. This video is being recorded, and the same link that you use to sign up to it is where it's going to be published. Somebody's asking, where did you say I can search for work similar to mine to enable me to know? So if you, just go to the, basically, go to the client side of the platform, to the project catalog and sort of searching, just search basically for projects there. So go to upwork.com, and in the search, you can choose from the 3 types of searches that you have, the project catalog.
You can't currently see a view count of your project catalog, but the best way to do it is just look at the stats on my stats. I think it is right at the bottom, and just see the increase on the basis that you're still applying for the same amount of jobs per day. That'd be how it's increasing.
Yeah. Somebody's asking, can we get tips on how to get the top rated plus on our profile? So if you go again, as Ross suggested, to my stats, you'll see basically a list of criteria that you need to match to have in order to become top rated plus. And this varies from the category to category. So the criteria is different depending on what category of work you do. So that's why it's best to just check there and see what applies to you. But again, as we've said before, don't think too much into it. If you have good reviews, if you have great client feedback and they're happy with the work that you do, that's what other clients care about at the end of the day. Have you been doing great work for other people in the past? That's what really matters. Okay, and here somebody's at, so yeah, this is a good point. So we talked about logo design, resume writing, and WordPress, and those are pretty standardizable projects. But Ross, for example, you work in marketing primarily, right?
Yep.
And so do I. So one thing that I've heard from other freelancers as well, who don't work in industries where they do kind of standardizable work but do more ongoing work, is that you can use the project catalog, first of all, as Ross has said earlier, for lead generation, to just basically give yourself more visibility and get the conversation started with potential clients, but also for paid consulting. You can set up a simple project around having a consultation time with the client, and having that being paid, as well as something like doing an audit for them, depending on what you do. If you work in marketing, audits, things like SEO, etc., then providing an audit could be something, a service for the catalog. And then I really think that there's good value in those projects around consulting hours, because generally we offer some consulting initially to clients, in our discussions with them. So having this opportunity to actually get paid for the time we spend doing that is actually great. I've set up as to go through the process and everything. I recently set up a consultation gig as well, and I got my first order. And it's nice to see, to get to know new clients who might work more with, but also get paid for that first interaction. Yeah, so if, again, somebody's asking if the client is unresponsive and you have a milestone access and you're running out of time. So in the case of the project catalog, the client hasn't responded for 48 hours, project will automatically get canceled and it won't affect your JSON. How can we set up payment milestones for the project if the value is more? Yeah, so if for instance you have a logo design project listed, and then a client comes and says that, hey, aside from the logo design, I also like some brand guidelines, etc., or maybe a website design or something that's not included here. then what you can do is just basically set it up as a fixed price project instead. Say, okay, here's what I can offer you instead of this, and make it a fixed price project.
Someone's asking if you can communicate with clients on Upwork. You can, on the basis that they're a client, but you want to try to keep that separate. Giving clients your phone number is a dangerous game, unless you've got a really, really good relationship with them. Expect calls at 1 or 2 a.m. and urgentness. It's just a bad game.
Yes, I've stopped doing that long ago. It's just like, you don't want to give people too much access to contact you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also, once you've started an engagement with clients, typically I communicate with them via email and Slack, and we set up calls on Zoom, recurring calls. But other than that, yeah, my phone number, never. And when I've made the mistake of giving my phone number to clients, I never answer them because I don't want to be contacted at random times, like by people. So yeah, be careful with that. Great tip. How to deal with tasks that can be expanded, additional sizes for banners, extra localizations, etc. I've already answered this, I think. So Russ, from your perspective, how do you think about using maybe project tiers or different projects to handle those kinds of things?
Yeah, either that or do a paid add-on on top. If it doesn't fit in the tiers and it's not something that is often requested, just do it as a paid add-on, which is kind of great because it's an upsell provided by Upwork. So for instance, once I've already selected which tier I want, I can then click on specific things that I want to add to the project. So it's great in that sense.
Yeah. I have already created my project catalog. However, some freelancers are creating at the same price. Does this give us any advantage? Should we do the same thing? No. So I really believe that as much as there's a lot of people on the marketplace, we're all very different. So as long as you're not copying other people word for word and you're doing things your own way, even if your service is the same price as somebody else, you're going to appeal to different clients than the other people, right? So we are our own differentiating factors when it comes to freelancers,
Right.
Ross, I think you also picked up a question. Yeah.
Abraham asked about the dispute services, which probably isn't the best first question you've got, but it runs through Upwork escrow, the same as projects or hourly. Everything on Upwork runs through that system. It's just an escrow.
Yeah. Can clients message us on a project? Yes, clients can contact you before they purchase a project as well.
Umi asked about how to deal with toxic clients. Cut them off. There isn't really a way to go around it. We've all had bad clients. It's just about filtering and understanding what they want versus what you want. If they want free work or if they want, to pay you outside of Upwork, it's just a lot easier just saying, hey, listen, I don't think this is going to work, taking the hit on the JSS and moving on, because keeping them on just gives you a headache, makes you have anxiety, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is with time, this is really like whenever I always like to do this analysis of what are my past clients and think about which clients that I really enjoy working with and which didn't, and which, based on that, the ones that I enjoyed working with, what kind of did they have in common? What are the things that I really liked about those types of clients? And the same for the ones that I don't like. And over time, this has really helped me really filter out and stop even having discussions with the types of clients I know I'm not going to enjoy working with, and really focus on the ones that I do. And this varies from person to person depending on what you like. But this is really, I think, the great thing about being a freelancer is that you can, as you go, learn to define what types of people you like to work with and get to a point where you're really working with them. So exactly. And I think Ross has a similar experience to that.
Yeah, it's the same as when you work for a boss. So when you go for an interview for a job and you scope out who your boss is going to be and who the owner is, and you work out if this is going to be a good fit. Remember, that's a full-time job, whereas freelance can be full-time or part-time or 1 hour a week. It's just scoping them out and understanding what they want versus what you want, and seeing if you're going to be a good match. You know, some of our clients have flown us around the world. Some of our clients have given us headaches at 2 a.m. in the morning. It's just about understanding what you want in this relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And also here, you know, you can go into, again, if you go to upwork.com/community/events, we cover this more broadly in some of our other webinars, but it's a good idea to kind of really define that also, you know, things like, do you want to work with, are startups the ones for you, or enterprise clients the ones for you? Kind of define the type of client that you like to work with. And then based on that, structure your profile and your service offering in a way that appeals to that type of client based on the information that you have about them. Is this service payable or free to create a project catalog? It's free. It's completely free. Can I promote my catalog on social media? Yes. Yeah, it's a public link, so you can promote it wherever you want. Can an individual have 2 or 3 different projects in their catalog depending on different services? Yes, you can. You can have multiple projects. You don't have to buy. Somebody's asking, do I have to buy connects for the project catalog? No, you don't. You don't have to buy connects.
Said about your project catalog being cancelled due to the main picture. Having it the same as a picture on Fiverr is probably not the best route. You can't have other logos in your picture. So try and make it unique. For me, mine's literally just text and a really nice background. And it looks really attractive, but it's super, super simple. So just keep it really nice, keep it attractive, and think what the client is thinking when he's looking through the multiple profiles, because ultimately he's going to search what he's looking for and he's going to scroll and see which one looks the most attractive to him.
Yeah. Is it possible to create project for graphic design from a Google AdWords expert profile? Yes, but keep in mind that this might be, you know, this is one of those things where people will be able to see your profile as well under your project. So if you know, you have a graphic design project, but then they see that you're a Google AdWords expert, to some people they might wonder, why are the services so different that you're offering here versus there? Are all projects in the project catalog fixed cost, or can you change to hourly? So if they purchase the project, they're essentially purchasing it with the price that you define, so fixed price in that sense. But you can then, you know, upsell. You can tell clients, hey, if you want to work with me on an ongoing basis, we can set up a project hourly. So you can do that as a next step. A lot of people are asking about how many projects you can create. Just really focus on like the top ones, you know, the top 2 or 3 things that you really want to do is my recommendation. In terms of ranking them, so there's no, you know, it's not like Google search. there's no basically how to rank at the top. You know, as Ross has said before, I think it's just a question of experimenting. Set up your first project and see what happens, and maybe set up your second one as a separate test and phrase it differently, or focus on a different niche or something like that, and try to find that sweet spot where you start to get clients. But it's not also about visibility, you know, it's also about just setting up your service in a way that is really appealing to clients. So that, you know, that often means that They know exactly what they're buying. They know exactly what they're going to get, how long it takes. And it's really easy for them to basically get the end result that they're looking for. All right. And we're at our time. Ross, is there any final question that you see that you want to answer? If
Yeah,
not,
so
then we
someone asked
can.
about having a hidden profile. If you want jobs, it's probably not best to have a hidden profile. Reason being is clients want to understand who they're working with and who they're talking to. Being hidden, if someone searches you or finds your URL link, they can't view your profile. It's just not a good route. Being public and being out there as much as possible. Remember, Upwork gets you jobs, but you can also get jobs and then bring them to Upwork. So it's about being out there and understanding your target audience, but also understanding that you need to have your profile public, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for staying with us again. I hope this was helpful, that we answered some of your questions. This, again, the webinar will be recorded. It will be posted. It will show up on upwork.com/community/events, where you can also find our other past webinars, as well as the future ones that are going to happen. So thanks again. And I hope, thanks Ross very much for joining us today and for sharing your experience with the catalog. And I hope to see all of you in our next events as well.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.